Oh, greetings everyone, and welcome back once again to Enlightenment to All on YouTube. There's quite a bit going on in the past week since I have been live. We'll get to that later. But first, I wanted to do a video discussing the South Magnetic Anomaly and how, at least in my research, it is the study of terraforming and the science of terraforming. A science that most civilian people are still unable to comprehend as of yet. I was humbly requested to do this video by Occult Priestess here on YouTube. I will have her video and her channel linked in my description below, along with all of the resources we will cover today in discussing the South Magnetic Anomaly. So recently there was another large magnetic flux reported in the South Magnetic Anomaly that affected GPS satellites worldwide. And the Van Allen belts themselves actually touch the planet in the area of the South Magnetic Anomaly, which you'll see in my thumbnail here. So let's begin with what the media is putting out there for people to connect the dots with. Begin with some of my research here. We're going to start with this link from Watchers News, which I will have linked for you here. Sans the egregious amount of extra code that Facebook uses from every link that you click on there to track you and etc. So this will be posted in our chat here. And out of Watcher News, I quote, ESA swarm investigates weakening of Earth's magnetic field, possible split up of South Atlantic anomaly. This was posted on May the 20th, 2020, which is when this anomaly was first going. Over the past 200 years, Earth's magnetic field has lost around 9% of its strength. Meanwhile, a large region of reduced magnetic intensity has developed between Africa and South America, known as the South Atlantic Anomaly. Over the past 5 years, however, a second center of minimum intensity has emerged southwest of Africa, suggesting that the South Atlantic Anomaly could split up into two separate cells. Okay, now, given what we've heard here about this anomaly splitting, I would like to direct you to a resource from what I believe was in, let me check here. Yes, this was from 2008 to 2012, and it's discussing the changes in the sun's magnetic poles, how the flipping in the magnetic poles of the sun is about 11 linear years, and during the time that the North Pole is flipping, there is a change in the polarity of the sun from a bipolar to a quadpolar. I will have this linked in my video description as well. This will bring you directly to my Facebook, where I conduct most of my research. Most of my networks are there. So you can see this image for yourselves. I believe it is public, unless I'm being censored once again. So the first thing of note here is quite obvious, is it not? As above, so below. If the sun's magnetic poles were flipping during this time, 2008 to 2012, and the sun went to a quadpolar structure before the poles actually finished flipping, then we could have at least somewhat of a basis to draw from for what's happening on the Earth right now, yes? As a new point of magnetism, a new pole is in fact emerging between South America and Africa. You look at the alchemical symbol of the Earth. You have a circle with a cross in it. This represents quadpolarity. Alchemy is the future, and many of the alchemists of the ancient world were tuned into a higher consciousness via sacred geometry, via vibration, via a lot of things that people still consider to be pseudoscience. So all of this would seem natural, would it not? This structure of the pole shifting and the sun going to a quadpolar structure. So naturally, at some point, the Earth would as well, as above, so below. But there's more to this, and I'm going to get into that now. So look at the logistics of where this new anomaly is being reported. And again, you can see my thumbnail you can see how it's developing. Now, I'm going to bring up another article here. See if I can find it here. Ah, yes, this is from Science Alert, and there are multiple other outlets that are reporting this. I'll have this linked in my video description here as well for you. So from Science Alert, mysterious anomaly under Africa is weakening Earth's magnetic field. Now look at where they're showing this anomaly at. It's right at the south part of Africa, where the nation of South Africa is. And if we compare this to the anomaly, we can see that where this new magnetic anomaly is developing is very close to right there in South Africa. The media will never connect all the dots for you. You must train yourselves to do that on your own. Many people seem to think that the media has to tell them everything, and that the media portrays themselves as being an entity which will tell you everything. And indeed, they delude many people into believing just that. But only those who are thirsty for knowledge, only the seekers, will take what the media gives you and be thirsty to learn more on their own by comparing multiple sources of media, not only national, but also international. So as we begin to connect a little bit of dots here, we see there is an anomaly under Africa that is weakening the Earth's magnetic field. And if you notice the ESA site, the watchers here, they're saying absolutely nothing about this. It's only vaguely hinted at. So moving on now. We know that the magnetic anomaly is increasing. We know that something underneath Africa is causing it. But what we don't know is, well, at least what most people don't know, is that this is the science of terraforming the planet, everyone. This is a science that most ants who are still on the hill and have yet to awaken cannot understand. This science is something that goes beyond their comprehension. It's like trying to explain rocket science to an ape, to be quite honest. We have this whole geoengineering agenda going on now that I think only the true shills can deny anymore, as the Air Force itself has admitted to it. In this part of the nation here in Washington State, we are experiencing record low temperatures, whereas not too far south of here in California is experiencing record high temperatures. The weather has been extremely cold this year, which is defying the Farmer's Almanac for its prediction for this region, which is supposed to be a warmer than average summer. We have climate change going on nationwide, worldwide. And the majority of people still think that it is completely natural, that this is Mother Nature. But what seems natural to the many is, in fact, a very highly sophisticated science of terraforming and geoengineering. Now, another aspect I want to get into with everyone is that if the power gets cut and the media tries to portray it as the South Magnetic Anomaly and tries to portray it as something natural, you must remember that it could also be an EMP attack. Cover stories are issued every day after any type of military attack so that national security is not jeopardized and that civil unrest is kept to a minimum, damage control. So now as the media begins to flood us with all these articles of the weakening Earth's magnetic field, it opens the door for a plausible deniability EMP attack in which an entire city can be silenced via EMP, and the media will immediately begin to push it's because of the South Magnetic Anomaly, it's because of a solar flare, it's because of solar wind, it's because of any number of galactic planetary issues that NASA claims absolute knowledge and sovereignty over. And this is how they are manipulating so many people. Another science of terraforming is in earthquakes. Earthquakes have been shown to not only shift great areas, tectonic plates of the Earth, But also, they can relocate a whole bunch of people in a hurry via disaster type scenarios. And as the North American continent is being rattled by earthquakes day after day now, nobody's talking about the volcanoes yet. If you look at the progression, it began with the earthquake in Virginia several years ago, and then it started moving west toward New Madrid, and then it got into Texas, and then it got into Utah, southern Idaho, Nevada. It's all moving west as the land from the Pacific is moving in. And where does this all collide at? Where is the fulcrum of all of this tectonic movement? It is the Cascade Mountain Range, just as the Andes in South America is the same thing. Nobody's talking about the volcanoes yet, but with all this seismic activity, it won't be much longer before suddenly the media is talking about it and everyone's talking about it, giving all their collective thought to, oh, there could be a possible eruption. That's what happens with these movements. This is all by design. And in a volcanic eruption, what's going to happen? The federal government is going to play the savior immediately. They're going to swoop right in, relocate people, put them wherever they want them to, give them all this food and stuff they need to survive as long as they sign their name on this contract saying that you allow them to do that. It's just another arm of the cabal, and there are still many arms of the cabal that people cannot yet comprehend, such as the science of terraforming. So, again, just to give a quick synopsis, just as the sun goes quadpolar, so will the Earth. And while the media is not telling you that yet, that is what's happening with the South Magnetic Anomaly. And there's a plethora of theories as to why it's happening, such as Nibiru, such as the solar minimum. You must combine them all to find the true answer. You can't just take one aspect and say, yep, that's what it is. The enlightened mind will be thirsty for more. It will be thirsty to connect more of these dots. And now, as we are all under a complete 5G surveillance grid, there's nothing that's going to go unseen. The only thing that's going to go unseen is by the civilian people who do not have access to this clandestine deep state technology. To the civilians, it's used only as communications. Whereas to the feds, it's used as communications, it's used as crowd control, it's used as mind control, it's used as surveillance. This is always how it works, you see. When cell phone towers were first established, they were seen as purely a basis for communication, not for surveillance. But you look at every state patrol, you look at every sheriff's office, you look at every military outpost, and what do you see? A gigantic antenna array. They're not using it for anything other than communications now, are they? So, with this discussed, I hope I have revealed a little bit more about what is truly going on with these magnetic anomalies. And while, again, the media will try to portray them as natural, you must remember that this could be a plausible deniability for an EMP attack. Entire cities can be silenced. No outside communication coming in or out. The military has that capability. And anyone who's not outside of the city wouldn't even know a thing. They would think it was something to do with a solar flare or the South Magnetic Anomaly. This is why knowledge is the only savior. So, in moving on, let's move on to a few other topics here. So let's begin in our humble state of Washington here. This report out of News Talk 870 AM, which I believe is out of Seattle. Report, 19 of Inslee's 27 Safe Start advisors are campaign donors. This is not surprising to me in the least, is it? We have a liberal governor, and we know that politics do not discriminate. Every face is the face of corruption, be it liberal, be it conservative, be it Democratic, be it Republican. I honestly believe the only face of politics that is not corrupt are those that belong to the independent party. That's just my humble opinion. So ultimately, everyone, it's only the patriots that are going to restore our sovereignty as civilians. We're still slaves to debt. We're still waiting for these stimulus checks, even though it's going to bite us in the ass later via inflation and taxation. What's it going to take for the plate to become so bitter that you can't stand it anymore? that you are willing to arm up and take back our sovereign rights together instead of being cowards in our homes. An individual may find that ambition, but as for a collective, I've yet to see it. All I see are protests. And what do protests accomplish? They accomplish weeding out the dissenters, because every protester is monitored. Every protester has a file, a facial recognition check. And while they are out protesting, they are sticking out like a sore thumb while they are accomplishing absolutely fucking nothing. The only way to restore our sovereignty, as I said, is to arm ourselves and to storm the Capitol. And we can't just say, hey, we know what you're doing and, you're going to change it or we're going to do this to you. It's going to be going in there and apprehending them and arresting them and imprisoning them on charges of treason against the Constitution of the United States and the civilian people. Do you think the police is going to do that? Do you think the military is going to do that? Fuck no. They've been bought and sold out already. The civilian people have been sold out by their own regime. They're owned by the Chinese and they don't even know it yet. What can be done about it? Like I said, people, until you're ready to organize with the militias and actually fight for our rights and our sovereignty, you will continue to be whittled away at every aspect of your daily lives. The sorrow of man. Welcome, 69 Phuket. No stupid comments. Granted, I have come to expect them in my trials and tribulations here, vlogging, and in my work with conspiracy. But I find that expectations often lead to ruin. So you should never really possess too high of expectations for anything. A quick update on 0 Point Technologies. So I have reinstated our business license for another year. I will be dissolving the company as soon as I have the resources to do so. I would like to explain a bit more of what's happened to us. Our investor turned out to be what I believe a charlatan and was manipulating us from the beginning, plunged us into debt, basically a black hole. And I feel that our technology was reaching the point where we were ready to begin pushing our prototype, our alpha prototype, which is a magnetic application capable of generating more electricity than it is using to basically start itself. And so as we encountered more and more financial difficulties from our investor, along with his inept ability to even be contacted and his troubles with the legal system, I had to push to involuntary withdraw him. And since I have done so, I have received correspondence from him saying that when he gets his money, he's going to come for me. Ooh, I'm so scared, right? I'm so scared of someone coming for me, everyone. Let me tell you. I'm just terrified here in my flak jacket and my fatigues and my fortress. I'm just terrified of any type of threats. So anyway, my other business partner, who has been a boon to this company, a bright gentleman who possesses a good head on his shoulders and a good heart in his chest, thinks that we can go forward in the future, but it will not be under the flag of 0 Point Technologies. As with dissolving this company, we will dissolve any past ties to our past business partner. And to move forward, I think we have to do that due to some of the possible incriminating evidence I have on him. Since I began doing business with him, I profiled him and his name very closely. I did see some red flags. I knew what I was getting into in the world of business, let alone the world of free energy in this time. And as I lobbied in the Capitol as a constituent and a business owner, I discovered that this type of technology is a threat to the national security of the United States because it's a debt-based system. And until they have their war first, then my technology remains a threat to the national security of the United States. So I've shifted my focus as CEO now and our business model more to our online networks and our education and away from the lab. And I think that this will serve us and the entire whole of free energy the best, at least until after they have their war. And as history will support, after every war, there's a great boon in technology, is there not? It was not an easy decision. I mean, as CEO and as someone with a vision of a future of clean and abundant energy, I wanted to, try to accomplish things as quick as possible. Again, as I looked our lawmakers in the eyes and I told them we have the solutions to this energy crisis, and they told me, oh, well, what if the sun doesn't shine? Well, that's because of your geoengineering agenda now, is it not? And they looked at me like I was crazy. Like what I was saying had no basis at all, even as their own military proclaims, yes, there is geoengineering going on. And again, as I said, it's just going to be a runaround until the people are ready to take back their sovereignty by force. And yes, that means war, everyone. You're trained to fear war. You're trained to fear combat. You're trained to avoid it at all costs. Why? Because it is the very thing that will liberate you from your debt slavery. All for enlightenment, but in a spiritual sense. A spiritual sense of enlightenment is a wonderful thing, but solely a spiritual sense is still limiting, is it not? You can be spiritually enlightened, but are you emotionally enlightened? Are you intellectually enlightened? This is one of the fallacies of dogma and the coven itself, the coven with God. You must believe in one God. You must believe in an absolute doctrine of one God. You must abide by that absolute doctrine of that one God. And anything outside of that doctrine cannot exist to you. You merely limit yourself. So again, to each their own. This is only my humble opinion. Moving on to some more content. We had a very strange radar anomaly that was coming out of Canada last night. I've seen these type of anomalies before. Granted, they were not quite this profound. And I'll have this linked in my video description and the chat here. It's a very clear circle, a scalar ring, as I call it. And this one was lasting quite a while, and it took different forms. I noticed one of these over the Great Lakes not too long ago. And again, remember you're working with linear time here. So when I say that these rings and these scalar squares are usually signs of earthquakes or storms to come, that can be anywhere between a week to 2 or 3 weeks before it happens, but I guarantee you it will happen in that area. Radar anomalies are an early warning sign for the watchers to allow them to know what is to come. And it usually comes in the form of a ring, which is, in metaphor, the angel's halo, the torus, the gateway between third and fourth dimensional consciousness. That's how you really explain the fourth dimension to the third dimension, is through the shape of the torus. We are walking cadavers, but the spirit goes on. Yes, you're correct, 69 Phuket. The spirit is eternal. And while the body and the soul conspire against the spirit is always loyal. That we can agree upon. Okay, moving on here. We have Red Rising. India deploys more troops as China digs in eastern Ladakh. China is slowly and meticulously making all the moves it needs to make worldwide to establish World War III, at least on a civilian level, to where civilians believe, oh yeah, this is World War III now because so-and-so said it was. We are all each other's brothers and sisters. You know, part of me would like to believe that, 69 Phuket. But then I see, you know, those who are politicians, those who deny the truth, those who are so dependent on this system of corruption, debt, that they will fight to sustain it. And I honestly cannot say I call those people my brothers or my sisters. I mean, to me, those people should be tied to the firing post, and you should put holes in them, because all they will do is lie and cheat and steal. That is all they are. They're not our brothers and sisters. They are an illusion. You shall know them by their fruits, and their fruits are not the fruits of my brothers and sisters. I promise you that. And some continue to be deluded into thinking that just because you have a human form, 2 eyes, 2 hands, 2 legs, that you are a human being. No. We've been infiltrated. There are beings that walk among us that look like us. They're not us, though. They're not our brothers and sisters at all. They are our nemesis. They are our adversary. And as the Christian Bible would proclaim, they are Satan. Moving on. Yes, just a little other update here on my company. So this was my official post. My company has been working on energy solutions such as magnetic, plasma, solar, hydrogen. However, in these trenches, lobbying in our capital as constituent and business owner, I have learned that this technology is a threat to national security as it is now, as it contradicts a debt-based system. I have also learned that they need to have their war first, then the great advances in technology happen. History supports this as well. The sorrow of man. Until this changes, aka post-war time, as CEO, I am now changing my business model and active work away from prototype research and development, from the lab, back to where we began, education and our online networks. This is how Zero Point Technologies began. And I think in my push for a prototype and my push for trying to come up to that next level, I may have lost vision of that. And in getting back to that, it's my earnest hope that I can reclaim that vision. Because as I said, putting out a prototype right now, most investors are invested in big oil or fossil fuels. They don't want this type of technology. This type of technology deludes their profits. So it is my honest and earnest hope that we may find future prosperity by keeping the torch lit through education, by pushing for not only such and renewable energy education, but also answer the question of why it has not yet gone mainstream, truthfully and without bias, which I have sorrowfully discovered. Another article here, this out of the Hindustan Times. Robot dog manages flock of sheep. Video sparks uneasy thoughts among people. Now, my first question here is, why are people uneasy at the thought of a robot dog culling these sheep? And yet they use their iPhones and their Fitbits and their technology every day to do the same fucking thing. They're fools. Their own technology is the same thing, guiding them where to need to go, when to go, how to go. And yet when they see it happening to the sheep via robot dog, suddenly they feel uneasy about it. This is the blind leading the blind. So blind that they are unable to see. Hurting is not my deal. Think you are wrong. Not here to argue the loss. I speak my heart. That's fine. I never saw a disagreement as a means for any two individuals not to get along. We may disagree, but we should build upon what we do agree upon, and perhaps later our disagreements could be absolved. This is the art of diplomacy itself. So again, I respect your opinion, even if I do not agree. Welcome, Strange Foot. Moving on to our next bit here. We have a quote from the philosopher, I believe I'm saying his name correct, Epictetus. Perhaps not. My pronunciation is not always correct. Forgive me. Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within your control and some things are not. Many people would like to believe that nothing is beyond their control. But to believe that is to, believe in absolutes, to be foolish. I once thought that I could control everything as well, and I had to remind myself, no, this is not the case. And every step, be it success or failure, is still a step along the path. So it's a reminder to everyone who's passionate about the future, about renewable energy, about abundance, and about truth, to be patient. And that some things may be beyond your control as of now, but in the future, perhaps they may not be. While other things may arise that do go beyond your control, some of the things that are now out of your control may not be in the future. Remain patient, remain vigilant, and never give up on your vision. So lastly, I'd just like to go into a little personal update. As you all know, my father passed away on March 11th, and it has taken me 2 months in this pandemic scenario to finally get the paperwork I needed to prove to the bank I am his power of attorney, to finally get the paperwork needed to send to the life insurance companies so that I can begin to hopefully give him some type of dignity, give him a burial with honor, a funeral with honor, 2 months after the man's death. A man who fought with valor and honor and wisdom for this nation, and a belief that this nation would serve him in the end, when in fact he was betrayed in the end. In the state of Washington, I still do not believe we are having funerals. The VA has yet to contact me in regards to getting him any type of service. His ashes are still sitting in town as I await the checks to clear so I can go and get his ashes and bring him home. They've been there for 2 fucking months. And I just have to say that I am disgusted with all of this bureaucracy and this red tape in this nation. You can't even have a family member die anymore without some type of bullshit paperwork to file out. I was going through the checklist of what happens after a deceased one passes away, and there must have been 50 different items. It's just so disgusting to me what people have allowed this system to become. And my father, who was a brave, courageous man, a kind man, a loving man, who believed in his nation, betrayed him in the end. And I still honestly believe that he had COVID, and it began in August when he started to slur his speech. And I had to seek a second opinion from another doctor to finally get a diagnosis of ALS. And no more than 2 months after I had that diagnosis, he passed away. A horrible, awful death in which he was unable to swallow food or water, in which they had to put a feeding tube through his nose to his stomach because they could not put a feeding tube directly into his stomach because of his war wounds. How ironic, Father, that the same wound you took fighting for this nation would be the same wound that sealed your fate, and this nation would betray you. So I try to carry on a strong head. I try to carry on as I wish my father would. But again, I'm absolutely disgusted with what I've had to endure simply trying to prove that I am his son, that I have access to his bank accounts, that I am his power of attorney, that I just simply wish to get him buried with any type of dignity and honor. But can we do that? No, because of all of this bullshit that's going on here. And I warned my father of this. I warned him that the nation he fought for was not the nation he thought it was. And until the end, that man believed that it was. And I guess when he finally discovered the truth, it was too unbearable for him, and he lost the will to continue going on. But I watched him deteriorate for 7 months, and it was just another bitter pill. But it motivates me to speak the truth, to value virtue, to value wisdom, and to just realize something's wrong on this world, everyone. There's something very wrong on this world. But nobody seems to have the ambition, the intelligence, or ultimately the courage to do anything about it. We have the rights to bear these, but what do we do with them? We're surely not taking back our nation from these corrupt politicians now, are we? We're not doing any of that. Instead, we're simply biding our time and waiting for the military to administer the COVID vaccine, which Trump has already proclaimed will happen. Many people still think it won't happen, but I promise you it's coming. And as I said, when the military comes to my door, I'm going to have something very special for them. Yes, broken leg COVID, heart attack COVID, you're correct, 69 Phuket. It's quite clear that people are not realizing the hospitals are taking any type of death-related, sickness-related thing, and they're blaming it on COVID. Why? Because they profit from it. And in this world, death and sickness remains profitable, which is another sorrow of man. With more wisdom comes more sorrow. This is why wisdom is not for everyone in knowledge, because they live in blissful ignorance. I've listened to other channels and there's sound cut out. Yeah, there's why did the sound keep going in and out? Yeah. This is YouTube doing what they do to censor me. They don't want people to hear everything I have to say. I'm surprised they haven't shut me down completely yet. I think the only honest reason they have not is because I'm a business owner. And just as I had Facebook accounts deleted before on copyrights of my own artwork, and as I tried to challenge them, I could see nothing. When I became a business owner and I began running ads on Facebook for my company, and then they tried to shut me down again on copyrights of my own art, saying that I'm not who I claim to be and my identity is incorrect, I quickly got on the horn to them and said, here is my identification. Here is my lawyer. I have ads running on Facebook. If you do not release my account right now, you can expect to be sued. And what happened? Within 1 hour, Facebook released my account. Suddenly, the copyrights of my own art and all this identity shit went right away. But before I became a business owner, I couldn't do that now, could I? They had nothing to say. They had nothing to respond to me, to my content in contending that this is my own art or it's not copyright. This is a very clear realization of the corporate power that sadly remains in America. And while it did serve me, I'm nonetheless disgusted by it because I was treated differently before I had that corporate power. So let's see, I've been live for about 35 minutes. I think I've said all I had to say today. All my links that we've discussed in the description will be in the video description below and in the chat. But just a quick synopsis. The South Magnetic Anomaly is not natural. This is planetary terraforming. And the Earth is going to be quad polar, meaning there's going to be a North Pole, a South Pole, a West Pole, and a East Pole. And the Earth symbol of alchemy makes this very clear. And if you ever become compelled to do the research on your own, you'll begin to connect these dots and you'll see it for yourselves. But again, any type of electromagnetic anomaly that the media is reporting on is a prelude to an EMP attack because it instantly establishes plausible deniability. And many people will believe that it's something from the sun or something galactic or something from Mother Nature, when in fact there is no Mother Nature. I did receive a question about shielding from EMP attack. There are a plethora of technological solutions, including Faraday cages, including orgone. However, in my research, nothing can beat Mother Nature itself. If you're seeking to shield yourself from EMP or radiation, I suggest bentonite clay. And I find that it works extremely well. So yeah, I believe that's all I want to discuss today. Personal company updates have been put through. I'm not sure when I'll be back here again, but I hope that it'll be sooner than later. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all safe and you stay intelligent. Keep an open mind. Perhaps heed some of the words that I've put out there today. And ultimately, I wish you all safety and abundance in whatever form that you have it. Because while many of us remain in lockdown, there are still many of us who think that we have it terrible. It could always be better. It could always be worse. And yes, you're correct, 16 Africa. Nature has flourished without humans. In many conceptions, humans are a plague upon this world. But the fact is, we don't have to be. We can be beneficial to this world if we can simply release ourselves from all these illusions that we have. So I'm going to be cutting off. Until next time, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Occult Priestess, I hope that my video was at least somewhat descriptive in the South Magnetic Anomaly and the Earth going into a quad polar status. Obviously, I don't have the type of click and point material that I would like here on screen. I only have my links and descriptions. But if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach me. I'll have my networks listed below: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that. And until next time, be safe and be well, everyone.